Are you in need of finding better salespeople for your home service company? What's up, blue collar business owner? Welcome back to the Blue Collar Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Maskler, where we focus on helping guide you to have a prosperous business. Today, we have with us Ryan Hogan. Ryan is a 23-year Navy veteran, founder of Run for Your Lives, Hunt a Killer, and now Talent Harbor, a recruiting firm focused on finding top salespeople for the home service industry. That is Ryan Hogan. Ryan, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. What's going on today?
Oh, not too much. Thanks for having me, Paul. Appreciate it.
Yes, we are excited to have you here. Definitely looking forward to this conversation. I know sales is one of the biggest issues that any company, especially home service companies, struggle with. Finding the right people, finding the balance between knowledge and expertise and industry and all that good stuff. So we're definitely going to jump into all that. But for our listeners that don't know who you are, can you kind of just fill us in on your backstory, how your journey got started? Obviously, you're in the Navy for a long while. How you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So Ryan Hogan is co-founder, CEO of Talent Harbor, lifelong entrepreneur. And really, I won't bore you with all the details here, but really started in third grade in Mrs. Price's class with some creepy crawlers. And I think what's interesting is like I can draw a line from that to kind of what I'm doing today, because it's all about the journey and the business being almost like a vehicle. 23 years in the Navy, 15 years were active. The last 8 have been in the reserves. I am the officer in charge of a unit out of Spokane, Washington. So doing some good stuff up there with quite a few sailors. And the entrepreneurship journey has been really focused in consumer space. And so the most common question I get today is like, how do you go from selling murder mysteries, and that company was called Hunt a Killer. We grew that from 0 to 55 million bucks over about six and a half years. And how did I go from the consumer product space, selling into Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, direct to consumer, all that stuff, getting into talent acquisition, and specifically talent acquisition into the sales roles and these coveted sales roles that are so challenging to find. But really, it was quite simple. I had a Vistage chair. He was a coach. He's a mentor. And when we were going through the sale process of Hunt a Killer, he said, "Hey kid, you're not going to be able to sit still. So go pick your favorite line item and go do that for a while." For me, it was people, the investment development, coaching, mentoring, everything people related. But we spent about $1 million on recruiting, and it never sat well with me. And like, I get it. The two things that have been most impactful in my business career or business journey has been Vistage. And so having a network or community of CEOs that have lived it and have gone through the pain that I was going through. And also something called EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And both of those two things are powerful. And what EOS basically teaches you is like, if you find the right people and you put the right people in the right seat, get everybody rowing in the same direction, you can compete in any market and dominate. But why recruiting shops still think that that's worth 30% with the technologies and databases and all these things that have improved over the last 50 years. It just didn't make sense to me. So turned around, co-founded the company with a 25-year recruiter. And here we are doing good things for great clients.
Love it. And I love the focus and impact that EOS has. If you guys haven't read the book Traction by Gino Wickman, he's got other books as well, but start there. And it really is, it really allows you to operate a small business like anyone operates a big business, and, building out the org chart or the responsibility chart that they talk about, and, making sure everyone's got their quarterly goals, and we've got our issues and we discuss them. We have our weekly meetings and quarterly meetings and all that. So definitely a plug there for EOS. Traction, Gino Wickman, love it. Love the creepy crawlers. I remember I had forgot about those, but now I remember you like pour the little liquid into the little molds, and all of a sudden you've got things you can sell in Mrs. Price's third grade class. So that definitely brings back some memories from elementary school as well. So here you are today. You are helping people find really difficult people to put into the organization from a sales standpoint. I feel that's, one of the biggest bottlenecks in building an organization of, hey, the founder, the owner, they're always, one of the best business development salespeople. But then it's like, how do we teach other people how to do this? How do we balance them? They come in, but they might not have industry knowledge and all that. So just kind of give our listeners, where do we actually find these people? It's like finding a unicorn. Where do we find the best salespeople?
Yeah, and here's what's really interesting, and maybe this actually starts with like where we don't find those people, and I say that because here's the reality, and I went through this, I lived this experience, and I lived through this pain, which is the first thing we do as a small medium-sized business when we can't afford to go cut a $50,000 check to find a single human for the organization. The first thing we do is what everybody does. We go to Indeed, we go to ZipRecruiter, we go to LinkedIn, because there's all these promises that there's going to be great quality candidates that come your way. And so the first thing we do is we start posting. And what happens almost immediately, especially if you're on LinkedIn with that easy apply button, what's the first thing that happens? You are inundated. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes that are now coming your way. So not only do you now have the burden of trying to identify kind of that needle in the haystack, but also the time commitment. Like, what's the process? How are you going through those candidates? And here's the reality. The reality is, especially in sales, the reality is the best salespeople are well compensated and they are killing it somewhere else. And if both of those things are true, that means they are not on Indeed looking for their next employment, their next place. And so real recruiting, especially when it comes to sales, is the salesmanship or the hunter attitude that the recruiters have to have. This is not a post something to some job board and sit back and wait for all the applicants to come. This is opening up a strategic database, understanding the requirements and the experience and expertise that you're looking for. And then just like you would in a normal sales pipeline, you start calling them. So how do you find the best salespeople? Well, first, like, what are you looking for? Who are your competitors? What organizations are these salespeople already killing it? And then you have to find their contact information. And the old-fashioned way, you start calling them. You email them. If they're on LinkedIn, you reach out to LinkedIn. If they're not responding to your phone calls or these, you can text them. But this whole idea of like sales recruiting is that you have to go hunt them. And that's where we see a lot of our clients have got it wrong in the past, because generally the pain point is very high. Very rarely will a client come to us and be like, you were our first stop. We've had great success internally. We just wanted to find someone else to do this. Most of the time when clients are coming, they're like, we've been beating our head against the wall for the last 3 months trying to find someone qualified. Or even worse, they'll say, we just hired, because some companies hire in like batches of 2 to 3 and they put them through a training pipeline altogether. And another thing that'll happen commonly is they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, we just hired 3 people and we lost all 3 people within the first 30 days. Because that's the reality. Like, recruiting and retention is brutal, but there is a proven way to do it.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense when you think about it. Of your ideal candidate is not looking for a job, so whatever your actions are doing, if it's you're just posting on Indeed and LinkedIn and job boards and all that, or even using an applicant tracking system, you're not getting the people you want to get. You're getting people who are looking for a job, which means they're either not employed or they're not doing it well or not enjoying where they're working. But you want the people that are the top of the top that are super happy and killing it and making a lot of money, and you've got to then wow them. So it's interesting, when you think about it that way, of now we actually have to market and sell to these people. And a lot of times I think we as business owners, we kind of forget about that we need to have a marketable brand. We have to have an attractive place to work. We have to do all these things that we do to woo clients. Now we got to do the same thing to build a team. So what are some of the ways that you've seen work? Obviously we're reaching out to them and, contacting them, but what are some of the things that these, top salespeople are actually looking for?
Yeah. And like, this is the first thing you brought up a great point with this whole idea of like, you're selling clients, you're selling all these people. And sometimes as entrepreneurs, we get lost in our own head. We're like, we might be drinking our own Kool-Aid too much. And we're like, why would anybody not want to work here? Like, I don't have to sell people. That's not the reality. Like, you do have to become a salesperson to find the right talent. And here's the interesting part is that because you're now in selling mode, you have to first understand what are the motives of that individual. What are the drivers? Because when you call upon somebody, if they're killing it and getting well compensated, and let's say that they're happy where they're at, well, then you need to understand kind of what are going to be the benefits of them moving to you. But before you just throw the kitchen sink at them or all the spaghetti and you're like, oh, we're a better place because of X, because of Y, because of these benefits, because of, whatever reasons you're going to use, we find it much easier to first understand what motivates that potential candidate. And that happens on the first 30-minute call. So when we start reaching out and we finally get someone on the hook, the first thing that we do when we get them on a call is we just listen. And what we're listening for is what are the drivers? And it's different for everybody. Some people are all about the money. And so this is about like, I feel like I'm not getting compensated for the effort that I'm putting in at my current employer. Therefore, their motive is they want to make more money. Sometimes it's title. There's a lot of sales people out there that are looking for sales leadership roles, and they've been at the same company, and this company may not have had a position to put them in, or maybe they're stuck where they're at. And so immediately you're like, they're looking for career progression. And that's a lot different than money. Title, other things that come along with that. Maybe it's culture. Maybe it's the organization I'm at right now is not growth mindset. Like, this organization is capable of more if they would just listen to me. And so then you're leaning into what's the vision for your company. But before you have that information, you have no idea what to lead with, because you may think, oh, it's money. Obviously it's money. Okay, so, you have the potential of making $600,000 here if you work, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can make all the money you want. And they're like, well, actually, I just want to be a manager. Not just, but actually, I want to be a sales leader. Like, I want to move to the next level. I want to manage salespeople. I want to put together processes. So anyhow, long-winded there, but the short answer is, like, first you got to understand the motives. And that's what we do on the first call. And then you can start to craft, just like you would in normal sales, the solution for their problem. And that's what you're really going to focus on during the later stages of the interviews.
It's amazing when you break it down that way. It is actually really simple sales, right? Like, we ask a question, let them talk. The best salespeople don't really talk. They just ask questions and really figure out what's the pain point. What are these people trying to solve? Where are the opportunities that we can help support them? And then, like you said, craft a solution based on what their needs, if it's the right fit, if you can offer what they want. They want a better culture. They don't want to work on the weekends. They want to be recognized more, whatever it is. They're sick and tired of having C players stick around for too long, whatever it is, and it really does make it a lot easier, instead of, like you said, throwing the whole kitchen sink at them when they're like, I don't really care about any of that. So why would I want to come work for you? So walking them through this journey, we've got their attention. We've had the call. We've sat down. I've seen a lot of owners really kind of struggle with, well, this person doesn't understand the industry. They're coming from a different industry, and we just do things differently. They don't have the technical knowledge that we need here. What do you tell those people, especially when it comes to sales role?
So first and foremost, this really comes down to culture fit at this point. You can look at a resume and very easily look at a resume and say, do they have the requirements? Do they have the skill sets? Do they have the experience and the expertise to excel in this role? In EOS, that would be called GWC. Do they GWC the seat? Do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to excel in this seat? What most business owners get wrong is that's the easy part. The hard part is, will this person fit into the organization? And so that starts with understanding, what are the core behaviors inside of this business that drive us towards success? And those are called different things. Sometimes they're called core values, core behaviors, principles. There's a lot of different names for them, but these are 3 to 5 generally like tagline things that the company lives and breathes. And if they're doing it right, it's constantly top of mind for every single teammate inside of the organization. And that's the most important part. So when you talk about this idea of, well, they don't have any industry experience, we find that we can place very successful salespeople from adjacent industries if they possess the right behavior traits. And that means, do they lead with curiosity? Are they coachable? Do they care? Will they put in the effort? These are the intangibles that are not on the resume, that if you can solve for those, which are very specific interview questions. And by the way, like we'll make sure that we put we'll send you to a website where you can download some of our questions and things like this so you can apply it inside of your own business. But those are the things that are often overlooked that I would argue are the most important. And my argument is based in hiring many wrong people that had the perfect resume, but just didn't fit inside the organization.
So you bring up a good point, and I know at the end you can send our listeners to that website, but are there certain personality tests or certain questions or certain things that you focus on to determine if they are the right personality? Because like you said, the most successful organizations, they hire for personality and train for the job. If they've got the right intangibles, we can teach them the tangibles. But is there like any certain things that you guys focus on to start to kind of pull that out of these candidates?
100%. So and very simply during the interview process, we have two separate interviews after the discovery call. So is this going to be a fit? Are we going to be able to woo them? Are they even interested? They've at least taken the first step to get on a call. So there's some interest there. And that's where we're determining if we're going to be able to get them through the next two interviews. And so one of those interviews is the experience and expertise. And what we're looking for, because most people, when they have their resumes, all they're putting is roles, responsibilities, and some of the things that they were overall responsible for. What we want to know during the interview process is, what were the outcomes? What were the results? Great. You were this position and you oversaw this, but what did you achieve in that position? And we're looking for tangible numbers or statistics or things that they accomplished there. When we get to the next interview, and this is called the core values interview, what we're looking for is cultural alignment. Anytime a new teammate comes into a business, no matter how intentional that business is with their culture, and this is specific or especially true in small, medium-sized business, the culture is going to evolve. And the evolution of that culture is it going to be a net negative or a net positive? And so what we're trying to do through the core values interview is we're asking specific questions to make sure that the core values of that human, the guardrails that human makes to make decisions and take actions, align with the core values of the organization. And then you just brought up a great point, and we are deep believers in this. The idea of assessments. There are so many things that are quantitative that are sometimes impossible to achieve or possible to identify throughout the interview process. And so we use a variety of assessments. It depends upon what level we're at in the organization. So for instance, one of those is called OMG, the Objective Management Group. And it's a specific salesperson or sales leader assessment that they take online, and it'll give us a beautiful report on how do they think about selling, what is their follow-up style, what drives them, what are their motivators, and we pass that report along to the clients as well as all the answers and things from the interviews.
That's awesome, and I like having different interviews focusing on different things, so that way it's not kind of all over the place, and whoever's conducting the review really can kind of dig into that one aspect, whether it's the technical aspect or it's more of the cultural fit aspect. And I really love the idea of every time we bring somebody into an organization, that organization is going to shift slightly. Is it going to be for the positive or for the negative? So a lot of times we don't really think of that. We just think, is this person going to fit in or is this person not going to fit in? But can this person actually improve our organization and, level us up a little bit more? Over time, we're going to have a pretty awesome organization. Now, you had mentioned at the very beginning kind of, the way of just posting jobs and seeing what happens. And then you get into that kind of vicious cycle of hiring, firing, and just kind of going through this constant turnover. And then we get the mindset of, well, I just can't find anybody for this role. I guess I'm just going to have to keep doing it. What have you found, whether it's measurable, immeasurable, the difference in the process you guys use versus kind of the historical process of just waiting for people to apply, the cost of that turnover, what does that actually do to the organization?
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest issues that most organizations have with salespeople is it's a very high turnover. So when we got into this business, the interesting part was we didn't necessarily have a focus, because the reality is that there are databases that exist that have hundreds of millions of prospective candidate profiles in them. And any good recruiter has some sort of license to those platforms to be able to dig in and really start to pull those people out. The problem though is what we found is most people were using our service for sales roles, because initially we're like, we can find anybody anywhere. And that remains true. We still can. But when people started using us for sales roles, we did a deep dive and we were like, why are so many people calling on us for sales roles? High turnover. It's very hard to vet. So when you think about a salesperson, almost all salespeople can sell. They can sell themselves. They are extroverts. They are personable. They are social. They can sell themselves. It doesn't mean that they can sell your product or service. And all of this stuff feeds into how challenging it is to find, hire, and then retain salespeople. Because of that, there aren't many recruiting shops that are in this space. And so we saw a blue ocean here. And so our whole commitment was we're going to become subject matter experts in specific sales recruiting, which is how we got to the 3-part interview. It's why we started to introduce different assessments. And it's also one of the reasons that we continue to track the retention rate with our clients long after we've already completed, we've completed the evolution, because we want to continue to test and validate this. But the whole reality is, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, so I would hate to retread on this too much, but the people that are applying, that are hitting that easy apply button, those generally are the types of people that will have that high attrition, high turnover rate. And so one is, once you identify the right person, you understand what drives that human, and authentically the things that you provide genuinely align with that human. Meaning that if they want upward mobility and you're like, well, we don't have upward mobility, but we can tell them there's upward mobility and then we'll eventually grow into it. Like, that's going to create issues downstream. And so there's a lot of consultation that happens throughout this journey and throughout this process. And listen, like, it doesn't work for everybody, meaning that there are many times that we jump on that initial phone call and we're like, we're not going to be able to sell this person on this opportunity, because let's say it's a compensation, because like where their head's at with compensation and where you're at, the delta's too great. Therefore, there's no point in continuing. But I guess the short answer is like, when you go and when you hunt and when you properly evaluate, what we have found through our data is that it's stickier. There is a greater retention when you go out, find the right person, properly vet, and bring them through with a proper onboarding process.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things I've realized even just through this conversation is a lot of times, obviously, your process, Talent Harbor process, takes a little bit longer, but in the long run, it's actually a lot shorter because we don't have the constant turnover. Like you said, hey, I'm going to go hire the 3 best people, put them through boot camp, best one wins, and then within 30 days, they're all gone. And then we got to keep doing this over and over and over, instead of taking the long-term approach of let's take our time to find the right candidate and then make sure it's a good fit, like you said, from a sales process of, well, what are they looking for and can we provide that? And something that always sticks in my head, a mastermind that I'm in, one of the guys in there always says, whoever's leading the organization, their vision has to be bigger than the vision of everybody that's getting on the team in order for all those visions to fit in there. And a lot of times, like you said, if we're too small of an organization and this salesperson's vision doesn't fit in ours quite yet, well, we're doing everybody a disservice by bringing this person on, because eventually they're going to leave because they realize there is no upward mobility. So as we start to kind of wrap all this up, Ryan, we like to ask everybody on our show. We talked about a lot of different things, but obviously there are a lot of bright, shiny objects out there. There are a lot of things going on running a business. We want everybody to take immediate action within the next 24 hours. So what is just one thing that you would recommend any business owner out there, manager out there, that they could do within the next 24 hours to move their business just a little bit forward?
And what's crazy about this is it's going to have nothing to do with the talent in this case. It's going to have to be retraction. Traction was a life changer for me. So when I think about like Hunt a Killer grew from 0 to 50 million, not because I'm brilliant or because of anything else. It's because we had a framework. Like, if you do not have the foundation, it's impossible to bring in the right talent. So if you don't understand your core values, if you don't understand the vision, if you don't understand the 10-year target, all of these common things that are a part of that framework, it's impossible to hire the right people. It's impossible to retain them, because generally organizations like that are just in pure chaos. And then at the end of the day, it's impossible to retain because people don't want to be a part of that. So my biggest my biggest thing here is pick up the book Traction, and it'll change your life.
There you guys go. Traction by Gino Wickman. Guys, check it out if you haven't checked it out. It is a great framework. And if you don't want to, there are also what they call EOS implementers. So if you don't want to implement it yourself, you can hire someone to walk you through it, which is well worth the investment as well. Ryan Hogan, thanks again for coming on the show, sharing your journey, and providing a ton of actionable advice and insight for all our blue-collar business owners out there as we continue our journey to prosperity. But before we sign off, where can listeners go to keep in touch with you and learn more about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, the easiest place is just go to talentharbor.com/Ryan. That's talentharbor.com/Ryan. My LinkedIn profile, email. I love just being a soundboard. So if anybody just wants to just kick it and bounce ideas back and forth, I don't know. That's what drives me. So you can find me there.
Awesome. talentharbor.com/Ryan. Guys, go there, check it out, and connect with Ryan. Ryan, thank you again for coming to the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
And before you head out, if you are ready to have a business that produces consistent positive cash flow so that you can have a financially healthy business and achieve your personal goals, let's make it happen. Head on over to thebluecollaradvisors.com/call to book a free financial assessment of your business. I will dive into the financials of your business, take a look at what's going on, find any red flags as well as opportunities that you have in your business. Let's make it happen. Again, thebluecollaradvisors.com/call. Until next time, remember, what got you here won't get you there. If you're ready for different results, it's time to start doing things differently.